Welcome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you dropping by and saying hello. These office hours presentations are every Monday for a while at noon Pacific time. It is a relaxed, kind of informal mentoring program that I have for small business owners everywhere. Every Monday at noon, and the recording is going to be available online until the next webinar is held, and then later on the recordings will be archived in a membership area. So we're going to offer a members program in some number of months after we built up some recordings and we gather significant content and put it back there. Until then, all of this will be free. Our agenda today is we're going to have an in-depth discussion of one business success principle, and today the subject is hiring. And then I'm going to have a few closing remarks and special offers and invitations to join us next week, and then we're going to follow that with a question and answer period. Last week was very festive. We had about a 45-minute or a 50-minute question and answer period at the end of it, and it was very exciting, very meaningful to me to have the opportunity to answer questions that were significant to you. One of the things that I often talk about in business are the key performance areas. I generally do most of my consulting work, and all the books that I write and the information products that I create are all based on the fact that to run a business requires expertise in a lot of different areas of business. And I chunk those into different categories such as leadership, sales, and service and delivery, financial management, operations and administration, product development, and marketing are my 7 key performance areas. Today's subject on hiring actually touches on a couple of these. It can touch on operations and administration because of the hiring practices and the human resources efforts and business processes that you need to put into place. It also touches on leadership because one of the responsibilities that you have as the leader of the company is to create your own success team. And like I say in my program Beyond Business Survival, is to get massive support for your business. So hiring people can actually touch on a lot of different areas of your business, especially depending upon which job you are hiring that person for. So we're going to talk about best practices in staffing, and I want to start out by talking about a couple of different scenarios because hiring people for your business can be extremely important. I oftentimes heard the adage that as many businesses fail in expansion mode as they do in startup mode. I don't think that's exactly true, but anytime that you expand your business through any sort of investment at all, and especially in an investment in hiring people, it can be an extremely expensive and very focused investment, risky investment for you. So we're going to talk about a couple of different scenarios. Scenario 1 is hiring to increase your capability to sell services and generate revenue. And number 2 is hiring to increase your capability to deliver products and services. So let's take a look at scenario 1, hiring to sell more. In this artificial scenario, we have a company that's making $10,000 a month in revenue. Their expenses, which includes all of their staff and all of their overhead, is about $6,000 a month, and their take-home is $4,000 a month. That's a pretty good business. That's a stable business and one that can, sustain somebody for a while. But they see an opportunity to hire administrative support staff and/or marketing and sales support staff and steadily increase the revenues thereafter. So they decide to make an investment. And here's what it looks like graphically. In months 1 and 2, they're the same, $10,000 a month in revenue, $6,000 a month in expenses, and $4,000 a month in profit. In month 3, they hire somebody new at the company. They're spending $2,500 a month to hire that person. But because it takes some considerable time, they have less revenue in month 3. So their profits or their take-home pay reduces from $4,000 a month to $500 a month. And then thereafter, the revenues steadily increase, the expenses steadily increase, and the profits steadily increase. This is a very common scenario that I see with business owners out there. So to review that, they increase their overhead by $2,500 a month. The revenues fell $1,000 for only 1 month only. The revenues grew steadily afterwards as their expenses also grew steadily thereafter. It took 6 months to return to the previous profit levels and begin paying back the investment. Their total investment was $10,000 in lost profits from the business over a period of 6 months, and then they were able to recover that $10,000 through increased profitability 11 months after they hired the new employee. And that's kind of like loaning somebody $10,000 and being completely paid back a year later, and then forever after being able to enjoy increased profitability because of that investments that you made. But it's an expensive investment. Here's scenario number 2, hiring to deliver more products and services. In this scenario, we're going to assume that you have massive agreements in place with brand new customers and that your revenues increase immediately with the delivery of products or services once you hire new people who are going to help you do that. And expenses increase at 60% of revenue, and this is what this one looks like. We held the same $10,000 revenue, the same in months 1 and 2, and then immediately jumped to $13,000, and then $14,000, and then $15,000, and then $16,000, steadily increasing our revenues over time, steadily increasing our expenses over time, and steadily increasing our profits over time. So to review this one, in scenario 1, we had a $10,000 investment over 6 months, recovered in 11 months. In scenario 2, we had $15,400 to the bottom line in the same 6-month period of time. So here's the bottom line to that. If at all possible, we want to sell first and hire second. Sell first and hire second is the way that you can grow most comfortably, and that means they're being able to essentially outsell your ability to deliver products and services and be forced into the mode to expand so that you can deliver on the commitments that you've already obtained from your customers. If you have an opportunity or had an opportunity yet to listen to my Beyond Business Survival Bootcamp and watch that, you'll know in there that I talk a lot about successful hiring and onboarding practices when it comes to getting new people onto your team. And in that I define a 5-step, step-by-step success formula that's used by both our military and by very sophisticated corporate America. And they can get like an 85 to 90% success rate if they follow this 5-step success formula. And we're going to talk about that in detail, each one of these steps, if later on in the presentation. But first I want to talk about the importance of hiring the right mindset and hiring the right attitude. You know, there are different levels of people out there. And I'm going to give one of my colleagues, Annette Bow, who trains financial planners nationwide, for teaching me this particular concept. She says, Paul, that there are 3 different types of people. Level 1 people see themselves as victims and prisoners, and they blame all their problems on the outside world. They're typically highly stressed, they're tough to get along with, they're undependable because they're going through so much crap in their life. Level 3 people, on the other hand, feel both empowered and responsible. They're eager to learn and contribute. They're helpful, they're dependable, they're optimistic and happy. And when I asked her what level 2 was, well, she says, well, level 2 is people who are somewhere in between. Now, you don't have to be a perfect level 3 in order to qualify as a level 3, because even the most eager and enthusiastic and opportunity-focused people generally have some stuff that comes up every once in their life, every once in a while. But there are people who are level 1 and where that comes up every single day. So here's the bottom line. We want to hire level 3s. And every single step that we take in this hiring process, from the job description to our ongoing management, is desired to find, to onboard correctly, and to cultivate the right mindset and the contribution of those level 3 folks. So let's talk about these 5 steps one by one. First step is to have a great job description. That's to define the daily responsibilities and the periodic responsibilities that someone might have in a particular position, thinking for the long term, by the way. Most of the time you want to think for a job, you want that person to be around 2, 3, 5 years with your company, or even longer. So you think for the long term and figure out what that long-term job description is. You define their desired talents and experiences. You define their desired attitudes and their perspectives. And you define the level of effort and the level of commitment that's required, which means how many hours of work a week do you need to put in? Is there any overtime expected? Do you need to travel? Do you need to work any weekends? How about holidays? That sort of stuff. And you define other acceptable behaviors too, other acceptable behaviors like dress code and the time that you show up at work each day, and the way that you treat your customers and employees and those sorts of things. So in your job description, as much as possible, you want to define the characteristics of a level 3 person in that position and what it is that they're going to be doing on a daily basis and on a periodic basis. In step number 2, during the interview process, we want to have multiple candidates. I'm surprised oftentimes by the time people just interview one person, but I really advise you to interview more than one person for the job. 3 or more is very helpful. If you put an ad out on Craigslist or on career, I think it's monster.com and other career building sites, you'll find a lot of candidates out there. Oftentimes, especially the last 3 or 4 years, sifting through those resumes was really the hard part. But I want you to interview multiple candidates so that you can really understand how your chosen candidate or your preferred candidate measures up to the rest of the people that you talk to. And it's very helpful to have multiple interviews. So interview them not just once, but more than once, and with different interviewers if you've got multiple people with your company at different times of the day, because some people are much different in the morning than they are at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So the best practice is to interview somebody 3 times before you have a hiring decision, to make sure that you've got different people interviewing them and to interview them at different times of the day. And outside interviewers can be very beneficial. It's one of the many things that I do for my clients is interview their candidates for a new job, because I'll ask questions and see things that they won't see whenever they interview them for the job. And ask smart questions that determine the experience and their talent and their attitude, and you want to look for level 3s. One other adage that I encourage you to say, to really take to heart, is to hire slow and fire fast. Generally speaking, well-meaning people, their inclination is to do exactly the opposite. They want to hire fast and then fire slow. They want to hire the first person that comes in through the door because they need somebody and they need them now. And they're reluctant to let people go, even though they probably deserve to be let go, several days or months or weeks before they actually make that decision to let them go. So it's step 2 during the interview process. We're looking again for level 3 people, and we're taking it slow. Then after you've got yourself a candidate, you want to make sure that you do your reference checks. Make sure that they have supplied you references, and pick up the phone and call those people. You'll find lots and lots of interesting people. I've even had the occasion of calling a person that somebody put down for a reference, and that person says, wow, he says, off the record, there's no way in heck that I'd ever want to work with this person again because of problem A and problem B and problem C. So you never know what you're going to learn during the reference checks. And if you have somebody that is going to be handling money or having a position of responsibility, or they're going to be a partner in your business, or a very critical contractor, or an executive at your company, you want to make sure you go well beyond the reference checks, and you want to make sure that you do the due diligence. One of my favorite companies in the CEO space community for helping you do that are Tonya and Justin Rekla at the Rekla Group, who know more about due diligence and background checks than anybody that I've ever met. So if you're hiring a key personnel, somebody that's going to be a key player in your business, or somebody that is going to handle money in any way, I really encourage you to invest the time and the money in having a professional check them out. I've got lots of horror stories with regards to that. One that I'll just relate to you is a person who was going to be a CFO with one of my clients who was out raising capital, and we did a little background check on this person and found out that they had spent 2 years in the state penitentiary for embezzlement, and they were being positioned as the CFO of the company, and there was a felony conviction. So that could totally destroy the entire equity offering that they had, and certainly you don't want somebody to be a CFO of your company if they've been previously convicted on a felony charge of embezzlement. That's just not good practice at all. So you never know, again, what you're going to find when you do your background checks and due diligence checks, and I strongly recommend that you do that for people at your company. Step 4 in our successful hiring process is the onboarding, and I define that as the first day through about 90 days. That's a probationary period. Your first day is very, very critical. You want to make sure that you take them out to lunch and you give introductions all the way around. Make them feel very special. You want them to stay long-term with your company, and staying long-term with your company really means treating them special on the very first day. Make them feel appreciated. and then have a training plan in place and give them the opportunity to be successful right away and contribute right away to make that onboarding as successful as possible. Praise their effort, praise their attitude, and praise their results. And continued with step number 4 are the performance reviews. I recommend that you have performance reviews at 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, and maybe at 60 days, but certainly at 90 days and then every 90 days thereafter. And in those performance reviews, you want to create a scorecard and share it with them so that they know exactly what's expected of them. You ask them to rate themselves according to the criteria, the success criteria of that job, and then you rate them before the meeting. And then when the meeting happens, you just compare the ratings. What I find, by the way, is that level 3s will consistently talk about the ways that they can improve, and level 1s will talk about how they have been challenged by the job and how things were out of their control, and how the job just may not work out for them, etc. So give them a chance to rate themselves. That's very, very beneficial. Discuss all of the differences and the issues that might be indicated by the differences in the way that you rate them and the way that they rate themselves. And as a bonus, you might make it a two-way. So you, as a leader, as a supervisor, may have your own criteria. My job is to always respect you. My job is to pay you on time. My job is to show up and train you the way that you need to be trained and give you the very best chance of massive success in your business. When you make that a two-way conversation, it really becomes very cooperative and very collaborative. And I encourage you to do that. Step out, because that's a little bit of a brave thing to do, but it's a very important thing to do if you're looking for a long-term relationship with your folks. And again, you want to hire slow and fire fast, which means during this probationary period of time, really keep in your own mind that this might not be the best solution for you, and it might not be the best solution for them as well. And then number 5 is ongoing management. The 5th step in your success formula for hiring and onboarding people is the ongoing management itself. I really advise you to have weekly one-on-one meetings with all of your direct reports, 30 minutes or an hour long, to where you can discuss their particular job, the challenges that they're facing, get their advice and the insight, and really make this a collaborative, relationship-oriented job hiring that you've done. Because it's your relationship with those people that report to you that's really going to make this a long-term and beneficial relationship for both parties. As their leader, your number 1 job is leader as mentor and leader as coach is to focus on helping them be successful in their job, and focus on shifting your mindset from achieving greatness by yourself to achieving greatness through the efforts of others. That means appropriate delegation, appropriate training, appropriate praising, and giving them credit all the way along the line. So those are the 5 steps in our 5-step success process. So here's a little bit of homework and some exercises for you that you might want to do over the next couple of days or so. First, we're going to have available in our members area, which you'll all have access to for the next week or so, a sample employee scorecard. I invite you to download that and customize it for your own business. And you might have one for you as a leader and one for them as a employee as well. And I invite you to come up with your own interview questions designed to have discussions about experiences and behaviors, attitudes and teamwork, their talent and their ability to learn quickly, just to see whether or not they're level 3, because that's real important. Whenever I interview people, one of the questions that I have, which is fairly rare, is I oftentimes ask people to share with me who their best boss has been over their history of their career, and who the worst boss is that they have had over the history of their career, and why would you consider them to be a good boss, and why would you consider them to be a not so good boss? Because that really helps me understand who they are as a person and helps me be a better leader to them as well. Level 3s, by the way, will be very reluctant to criticize people, and when they do criticize people, it will be a very fair criticism and one that's rather sympathetic. Level 1 people, who are always stressed and anxious and where the world is out to get them, they may not have ever had a good leader or a supervisor. And if you find that out during the conversation, the odds are pretty good that you're not going to be a good leader or a supervisor to them either. and it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's all about them. So we want to make sure that we're asking questions that really help you facilitate hiring the level 3 people. So that was the end, by the way, of our prepared material that I had for you today. We're going to have open questions and answers here in just a minute. I have to invite you to have some comments and questions on the topic of the day and then any other issues. But before that, I want to talk just a little bit and extend you an invitation to join my tribe, which is my specific community. It's going to be a Skype group, and the Skype address is Paul Hoyt. All you have to do is send me an invitation on Skype to join the Paul's tribe, and we'll be able to interact throughout the week. I monitor that, and I'm on Skype quite a bit, so if you have an open question for myself or other members of the community, that gives us an opportunity to form a community. The reason we're using Skype instead of Facebook is because the information is very private. Facebook has has a way of taking the information that they see and using it to their own benefit, and that's not true with Skype. So that's why we're using it as a Skype group. And I also invite you to study. When you signed up for this webinar, you received an opportunity to watch the Business Survival Bootcamp or purchase that at a tremendous discount. In that, you will learn key survival strategies for your business. You'll learn about business complexity profiles and a lot more. And then I encourage you to, if you got great value out of the Business Survival Bootcamp, to purchase and study Beyond Business Survival. Beyond Business Survival is my critical small business owner training program. It's what you need to know when you're the CEO. It's an on-demand, self-paced learning program. It's an online audio program with exercises and transcripts. You can go through it as often as you like. It's downloadable to your computer, your iPhone, or your Kindle, and has a private note area so you can take notes as you go through the program. Also, I still am providing a lot of services out there available for group coaching, private mentoring, strategic plans, business plans, and financial models, and also available for radio interviews, webinars, teleseminars. I have a very generous affiliate program in place for both my products and my services. So thank you for that opportunity for a brief little commercial break there. Next Monday, our topic is going to be on high probability businesses, businesses that do not fail. You know, we hear a lot of statistics about the success rates of businesses that some have, that is generally 50% success, or I had a couple of people in the last few weeks suggest that there's a 90% failure rate in businesses over the first 3 years. But when you dig underneath the covers, some businesses have a near 0% probability of success, and other businesses have well in excess of a 90% probability of success. So just seeing that blended average doesn't tell the whole story at all. Next week in our webinar, I'm going to talk about what the whole story is, and we'll talk about what businesses are high probability businesses versus what businesses are low probability businesses, and what we can learn from digging underneath the covers into the statistics. I encourage you to watch the Business Survival Bootcamp in the meantime and do your homework. And with that, I'm going to open it up for questions and answers. My able assistant here, Joni, is going to field your questions. I hope during the seminar or the webinar today that you had the opportunity to type some of those in. I know that we had a lot last week, and so I'm going to turn it over and invite Joni to say hello and ask her if she's got any questions. Again, we want our first questions to be relative to the topic itself, the topic of making good decisions in staffing and hiring people for your business and expanding your business with contractors and employees. And then after those questions kind of die away, we'll just open it up for a steady stream of questions and answers. So Joni, do you have any questions for me today?
We do. So let's address the sell first, hire second idea. How do you avoid the problem of not being able to deliver what you sell, thereby damaging your brand?
Thank you for that question. You just have to be cautious not to tremendously outsell your capability to deliver. You know, I've oftentimes heard that there are two different mindsets when it comes to business, and when it comes to writing checks, for example. One particular mindset says that I would never write the check unless I knew 100% that I could cover that check, that I'd never take the risk of that check bouncing at all. Then I've had the opportunity to work with people who are exactly the opposite. They would write checks willy-nilly and then try to find a way to cover the check and keep the check from bouncing. To be a great entrepreneur, I think it takes a whole lot of number one and a little bit of number two. Every once in a while, you have to be able to take that risk, to take on the contract, to take on the proposal of the agreement, knowing that you're going to have to scramble a little bit in order to be able to deliver that, and then to go out and find the capability to deliver that. But I would encourage you, since I'm a little bit more of type 1 there, a little bit more of a CFO and an operations manager and a project manager mentality, my inclination is to ramp up just a little bit before I go sell it, or to, if I outsell my capability to deliver, to just do it a little bit, not do it in a massive way, but do it in a way where I know that I've got a 90 or 95% success probability of success in delivering that with the services that I already have, or the capabilities and resources that I already have, and maybe just have to expand a little bit in that process. Hope that that's helpful. Joni, do you have another question for me?
Yes, thank you. Can you maybe go over contract labor versus a permanent hire, and maybe some of the tax ramifications of building a sales team in that mode?
Wow, a sales team in contract mode versus hire mode is an interesting question. So there are some models out there, business models, that totally depend on a contract sales team. They depend on manufacturers' reps. One of them that comes to mind for me, for example, was a clothing manufacturer that I worked for a couple of years ago. And their path to market is all about manufacturers' reps who get those clothes, that clothing line, into department stores and boutique department stores and retailers out there. You can't possibly get to those people without going through a manufacturer's rep who has a tremendous amount of experience in that level. So with some businesses, the only way to get your products and services out to market is through contract sales force, typically in the form of manufacturer's reps. Many other companies will reserve the high volume accounts for themselves, and they become house accounts or national accounts, and then they'll contract out the sales to other markets and industries and other sizes of business, particularly through the use of consultants, value-added resellers, distributors, dealers, authorized representatives, agents, brokers, all kinds of different people out there who can help you sell your products and services. So generally speaking, the best practice is that you want to reserve some portion of your market, and it's typically those most important clients, the highest volume clients, the most profitable clients, to reserve those for your own in-house sales capability, and other clients that are a little bit more difficult to reach. Maybe they're across the country, or they're in a market that you really don't have a good brand awareness in. You can reach those other markets through third-party sales representatives. Was that helpful, Joni? Do you think that answered the question, or do you have a follow-up there?
So this is a new question on
Okay.
how to manage volunteers and interns. I guess
think
the question really is, should you hold them to the same processes and expectations as a paid employee?
yes and no. So you definitely want to hire the right level 3s as much as possible. You want their energy and their enthusiasm before then. But if it's a volunteer, then it's not the same scorecard process. Volunteers are, it's a lot different when you're hiring and managing volunteers. You definitely want to give them a chance to be massively successful and to feel like they're contributing and to be rewarded for their efforts that they're putting in at your company. But you can't hold them to the same standards that you would with employees, because it's a different kind of contract. With a volunteer, the contract is essentially the volunteer is going to help you with your mission, and you're going to give them the opportunity to give back in the way that they want to give back and feel good about themselves and have the opportunity to share and give to others in that process. And that's different than the contract that you would have with an employee or the agreement that you would have with some third-party contractor there. For example, the same 15, 30-day, 45-day probationary reviews backwards and forwards won't work if it's just a 2 or 3 week assignment, or even a month-long assignment. Now, I would say that interns are quite different than that, because the intern, there's a couple of different interns. Sometimes the interns are with you for a very limited amount of time, like it's a 60-day internship over the summer, in which case you might want to accelerate that process a little bit, but treat them a little bit more like a former employee. In fact, you may be paying them as an employee. And then another type of intern is somebody that is really a probationary hire, that they're interning with your company with the outlook of potentially changing into a full-time employee position down the road, or a permanent employee position down the road. And so with those type, if it really has the opportunity of being a more permanent employee relationship, then I would lean more and more towards using the same 5-step successful hiring process that we described in today's webinar.
So, out of curiosity, if you feel like you have too much work and you really need the help, but you don't have enough money, or you don't feel you can afford to hire, how do you handle that?
I think you have to get yourself as much as possible in a position to have increased profitability before you go into expansion mode. Sometimes that's more possible than others, but always ask yourself the question, am I generating leads as effectively as I need to? Am I closing sales as effectively as I need to? Am I spending a lot of time doing stuff that I could delegate to a very low-cost resource, such as a virtual administrative assistant, or bringing in a college student for $15 an hour or $20 an hour? Can I take a lot off my plate that allows me to focus more time and energy on those high-value, revenue-generating, profit-generating activities, and put myself in a little better financial shape before I hire somebody on a more permanent basis and make a larger investment than I am right now today. So oftentimes it's all about cleaning house and getting better organized and more profitable today with the existing revenue stream and the profit stream before you go into expansion mode. What you don't want to do is expand a model that isn't working. I've seen some people like that. There's the old funny commercial on AT&T, I think it was on Saturday Night Live, that somebody says, what your business is, we make change. If you hand me $1, I'll give you 4 quarters, or I might give you 5 dimes, or I might give you, I might give you 5 dimes and 2 quarters, or I might give you 10 dimes, or there's a lot of different ways, but that's our business, we make change. And when the question was asked, well, how do you make money? The person says, well, we make it up on volume. Well, the bottom line is you can't make more money on expanding a business model that's not profitable. So your first focus has to be on making a profitable business model with the resources and the clients that you have. And that can be raising prices, that can be at a very low expense, delegating some of those low value tasks so that you can make more money and have greater revenues and greater profits from the very beginning. So step number 1 is to get your own house in order, and then step number 2 is to expand as much as possible.
Thank you so much.
Next question.
Yes. So what hiring process do you recommend if outsourcing as an entrepreneur?
What do you think that question means, Joni? Do you mean I'm outsourcing myself as an entrepreneur, or I'm looking at having outsourced contracts with other people as an entrepreneur, like outsourcing product development or fulfillment or outsourcing marketing or those sorts of things?
Maybe the use of a VA, or like you said, outsourcing some marketing. That's how I would interpret this question.
Well, I think it's the same 5-step process. I think that you understand what the job is, what the roles and responsibilities are. I think you interview multiple candidates at different times of the day so that you get a feel for what your options are. I think that you do reference checks and find out who they've worked with before, and if you're asking them to handle any money or take any sort of a critical position with your company, then it's about background checks as well. I think that you have a great onboarding process and a probationary process, and then I think that you manage them well on an ongoing basis. I think it's the same whether you're outsourcing to a contractor versus if you're hiring a permanent employee at your company, with a little bit of difference. I think it takes a little bit more diligence when you're hiring an employee because you have legal obligations there for workman's comp, and for if you let somebody go, that you might have some obligations. You're setting yourself up for any sort of legal issues. You have to make sure that you understand your obligation to hire without without prejudice and without discrimination on race or sex or age or any of those sorts of things. You have to make sure that you're asking good questions and appropriate questions during the interview process. So I would advise a little more caution for employees than I do contractors, because frankly, one of the reasons we have contractors is because it works or it doesn't, and you can let them go without any legal ramification. So a little more diligence with employees than contractors, but basically the same 5-step process.
What about using the 1, 2, 3 employee to delegate different job responsibilities?
So 1, 2, 3 employee is one of the many different virtual employee firms that I know of, and I've heard with all of them, it kind of depends on who you get on the other end. With 1, 2, 3 employee, I believe their model is that they have a lot of very talented people in the Philippines. Another CEO space company that I've worked with personally is PeopleSource with John Robert Fox, I think his name is, that I've used successfully myself. And I've tried a couple other things that have either success or marginal success, depending upon what you do. So you really got to watch, I think, where they are. That I've had, again, some mixed results with those personally, and I've had other clients that have had mixed results with those as well. That sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. It kind of depends on the person that you have on the other end, the virtual admin that eventually ends up being on your team. But it's not a very expensive thing to try. You don't have to sign up for very long contracts. At least that's been my experience. And you can, for just a few $100s, try it out and see if it's going to work for you. If you're able to get that golden person from the Philippines or from some other country, India or even Russia, that can help you out in a way that's less expensive than folks here in the USA helping you out.
Wonderful, thank you. Your consulting business incorporate a package to do the hiring and evaluations for employees of a small company?
It could. Generally, so far, that's been a service that I've provided as part of my ongoing mentoring relationships. One of the things that I do is have an ongoing mentoring relationship with a small business owner, and we'll either meet once a week for an hour or once every couple of weeks for an hour, or sometimes it's once a month for an hour, just to review the progress of the company and to help address issues, face challenges, overcome obstacles, solve problems, all of those sorts of things. So far what I've done was in the context of an existing relationship like that. But I'd certainly be open to discussing that with somebody about what it might mean in terms of hours and commitments and those sorts of things. You know, how many, for example, if you want to hire a key position and you want somebody else to interview them, then we can talk about how long you want those interviews to go, and what the requirements for the position are, and how many people that you would want me to interview over a period of time. And I'd be happy to work out either a 4-hour arrangement or a package arrangement for that. Thank you for asking.
How would they contact you or make
The easiest way to contact me is you can either Skype me at Paul Hoyt, Paulhoyt. You can send me an email to paul@paulhoyt.com, or you can call me at 415-997-8001. That's 415-997-8001.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And thanks for asking. I appreciate that. Next question, Joni.
So if you're just starting out and you don't really have a lot of capital, do you have some ideas for how somebody could raise that capital?
You know, generally speaking, when somebody starts a business for the first time, the money that they need to get started in a business comes from one of 3 sources. It comes from either their own personal savings. Some people dip into their retirement accounts. Some people have the practice of having, you know, several $1,000s in a savings account, or perhaps they just sold a house or something like that, and they've got a lot of money that they can use to help grow the business over the first 6 months or 12 months or so. So your own personal savings, your own personal retirement accounts is the most common way of getting the funds necessary to start a business. The second one is either loans or donations or even equity positions in your company from friends and family. So friends and family will understand that, you know, your business model may not be very well defined, you may not have very much traction in the marketplace, etc., and they'll be able to you'll be able to get some money from friends and family. And of course, that depends on how well off your friends and family are. If you're in a position of having had six-figure jobs for the last 20 years, the odds are pretty good that you know some people who do have the resources and want to play that entrepreneurial game with you. If you're just getting started and you're just out of college and nobody's got a job, or they're working at McDonald's or In-N-Out or some place where they don't have a lot of discretionary funding, then you're not likely to be able to get a lot of funds from your friends and family. And the third place is equity offering. And you can start an equity offering pretty simple. It doesn't cost you very much money at all to have a convertible promissory note, a business overview, to form a company and go out there and sell some positions in your company from the very beginning. And one of the things that I do as a capital coach is help people figure out what that all looks like. But the bottom line is it takes some number of thousands of dollars to start a business of almost any size. 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. It takes some money. It takes money to make money. It takes money to start and grow a business. One of the things that I didn't mention may be traditional banks out there. Banks will, in fact, loan you money to start a business if you can personally guarantee it. And if you've got a high credit score and a good track record with the bank, you may even be able to get an SBA loan where the SBA will fund a particular amount of it or guarantee a particular amount of that loan. In fact, that's what I did when I started my first business in 1980. I got an SBA loan for $10,000 because I had a pretty good credit score, and they were willing to take that out on me. And I put up a CD or some of my retirement funds as collateral against that loan, and it was most helpful to have that extra cash to start my first business in 1981. So I mentioned three primary sources, and there's always the fourth source of traditional debt through banks if you've got a good credit score and if the SBA will back you on that.
Those are great resources. Thank you so much. One last question. It looks like I have one employee and they are not living up to what we agreed to. So I need to let them go, but the situation is complicated because we have a friendship. How do I handle this?
I always recommend that you put the friendship first. That you invite them to some sort of a lunch or some sort of a meeting and have that open discussion with them. And it starts out with something like this, I really want to have a lifetime friendship with you. That's the most important thing to me, but I'm really challenged with the way that we're able to work together. And so sample language might be that, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like, our business relationship is as strong as our personal relationship? And kind of talk to me about that, because I'm concerned. I'm concerned that if we don't change the way we're working together on a business level, that it really could impact the personal relationship long term. And I'd rather see us terminate the business relationship or dramatically change the business relationship in order to put our personal relationship first. And one of the points that I make, by the way, to kind of take off character here for a little bit, one of the points that I make in the Business Survival Bootcamp and in my Beyond Business Survival programs is that really good agreements are even more important these days in between personal friends than they are between people who really never met each other. So to have those 15-day discussions and the 30-day and 90-day discussions are real important. You might introduce the employee scorecard or the relationship scorecard into that relationship going forward. You might invite them to say, hey, here's the way that I see your position. Here are the 5 or 6 things that I think it's really important for you to do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. And I want to get you some sort of an agreement with you that these are the important things. And then I want you to rate yourself, and I'm going to rate you, and we're going to go into this more formal performance review and have those open discussions. But generally, if it's a friend or a family member and they're in business with you, the more important it is to follow a really good process, the more important it is to have those open discussions about what's working and what's not working, because the ongoing relationship is far more important than the business relationship is.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's such great advice. Such a difficult situation. So a couple people, Paul, have asked where they can hear this recording again. Could you please review that one more time?
We'll send out an email to the folks who have signed up for the webinar, and to anybody who might sign up in the next few days. And we'll have the link in there, but I believe it's going to be paulhoyt.com/office-hours. That's what it was the last time around. And right now, like I say, for the next 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours, you can go in and listen to the recording from last week, the one we did on September the 16th. And in the next 24 hours, we'll be putting up the recording to this call after we have a chance to do just a little bit of editing to it and render it and make sure that we've got it tested out and is able for you to access. And the template that I mentioned as well, the template for the employee scorecard template, we'll put up there as well. So you should be able to get a link, and of course you can always send me an email or send an email to support@paulhoyt.com, and we'll get you the information as long as you've registered for the webinars. Perfect. Thank you so much. Other questions, Johnny?
No, I don't see any more. Would you like to review a few things?
I think I might review just a few things before we conclude here. I'm going to back up a little bit in the slideshow. And I just want to talk about next Monday. Our topic is high probability businesses that do not fail. As far as I know, I'm the only person that I've ever met in the entire world, by the way, who delivers this speech. That nobody else that I know of has really dug in beneath the covers of this statistic of 50% failure rate or 50% success rate in businesses, and noticed what I've noticed, and that is that some businesses have a 90% chance of success and other businesses have a 90% chance of failure. And it really helps you to know what the difference is between those as you start and grow your business down the road. And I would encourage you before then to listen to the Business Survival Boot Camp. I've really put my heart and soul into that. It's a free or heavily discounted program for those of you who are listening to this call. And it's got an hour's worth of, I think, really incredible advice that's going to save you thousands and thousands of dollars down the road. And it's a good entry to my Beyond Business Survival, much longer CEO training program, which I really think that people should listen to. I really believe that the reason we have a 50% failure rate is because people aren't very well trained. They jump into being an owner of a small business before they even know what the job is. So that's my passion, is helping you understand what the job of a CEO is and to give you the training that you need to have your best chance at massive success there. And in conclusion, then I invite you to join me in my Skype community and invite you to send me an email anytime you like at paul@paulhoyt.com. You can give me a call at 415-997-8001. I'd be honored to have a conversation with you about the services I provide or to see if there's any way that I can support you in growing your business. And unless there's some other burning question, I think that we're going to call it a day. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And the recording will be up. Invite all, if you got value out of this, then please share the information with other people too. I'm really passionate about helping small business owners succeed, and I want to reach as many people as I possibly can. So with that, I'll say thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Joni, for being my capable assistant today. I really appreciate your support, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Goodbye.